Hi, you're listening to Career Interrupted, and I'm your host, Joy Foster. And today I have a special guest who is a transformational energy practitioner. And she's had some career interruptions, and we're going to talk about those and talk about what she's doing now. It's pretty phenomenal. So, Jodi, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. Let's start by talking about the various different career interruptions you've had. You were a nurse for a very long time. So, let's talk about nursing and the interruptions, some of them which were intentional and some of them which were not intentional but came anyway. So, welcome to the show, Jodi.
Thanks, Joy. Lovely to be here. Yeah, so I did. I left school and went into nursing, and my first nursing job was up in northern Western Australia, in Outback, in a mining town. So it was interesting because we had the Indigenous population that lived up there as well. So it was very much an eye-opener, but I'd wanted to go back to the country. So I've moved a lot with the nursing because I could, really, and travelled with it all around Australia. So some of the jobs that I've had have been very much in some of those small country towns where there isn't very many people there. So whatever walks through the door, you're dealing with. But it was, and some of the conditions that people came in with as well. Certainly in northern Queensland, in Cairns, we also dealt with people from Papua New Guinea that got flown over to Cairns to look after, and some of being a developing country, some of the conditions that they came in with were just wow. Like, you just wouldn't get them anywhere else. And also the irukandji, the box jellyfish bites and things like that you get in the, yeah. So certainly travelled all around Australia nursing, which has been fantastic from a point of view of what I've seen. But also, like you mentioned, the interruptions that weren't planned. And that happened more when I came over to the UK.
Yeah, tell us about that interruption, because that's quite a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. So before leaving, so I've been in the country 5 years now. And before leaving to come here, I had started doing other things outside nursing, some energy medicine. And so I was, but coming over here, you go back to what you know. And qualification-wise, I didn't have to do anything, so I had a job to come to. So came over here, but what's really different is there's so much more red tape and politics attached to work. And so I really struggled actually quite early on. So how was I? So I took on a role and I was running a cardiac cath lab. So my background, I've got a postgraduate in intensive care, which I did in Australia. And then I got into cardiac cath lab. So working with the heart, when we put in, if you come in with a heart attack, we'll put in stents or pacemakers, or if you've got a faulty rhythm, so that sort of thing. And I was running the show here, but I'm being used to a lot of autonomy, and not having the autonomy was really difficult. So I was actually in a case, and my health started to deteriorate here. I was in a case and we were ablating someone's rhythm that was faulty. And I started to swallow my heartbeats, and I was starting to get palpitations and starting to faint. So it was like those alarm bells go off. So I ended up with 3 weeks off work, got all the tests, and it wasn't my heart. It was stress. Surprise, surprise. Because I don't know, so in healthcare, long hours and all the rest of it, and the amount of time and effort that was required at the time, I had an idea that it wasn't sustainable, and clearly it wasn't. So when I went back to work, I insisted, like, for me, that was alarm bells. I've always exercised. I've always eaten well. And, I've been teaching yoga since I learned it in 2016. So it was my health's really important to me. And so for me, in my head, that's right, fine. I don't want the role as head. I'll just go part-time. You've got me half the hours. So I go back on a stage return. And I kid you not, the day that they want me to return full-time, and I kept insisting, no, I'm only going back part-time. But the day I was meant to go back full-time, I slipped in the lab and fractured my kneecap. Like, seriously. The universe was trying to tell me something.
Oh, they do say if you don't listen, the universe finds a way. So that was
like, it so does. And I laughed. I just couldn't. And on that day, I've been doing some more energy medicine study, and I had an exam that evening at 7:00. And this happened at 2:15 in the afternoon. And all I had in my head is I have to get home for that. And it was actually really well done. By the time we contacted the director who allowed the whole process to happen, then I got a scan, then I went and got an x-ray, and then I saw the consultant, and then the consultant sent me to the surgeon, and then the surgeon sent me to the physio. And all that happened. And I got back home. Someone had to drive me back. I got home at it was 6:45. So there I am lying on my lounge room floor. My daughter was coming over to be my demo mum, trying to get the massage bed up, ready to do my exam. And I was clearly in shock at the time, but I did it, and I actually passed, but I have no idea how.
Oh my gosh, that's an incredible story. I think sometimes when those things happen, we are in shock and we carry on anyway, even though we really should stop.
Yeah, exactly. With hindsight, it probably wasn't the most cleverest thing to do, but all I had in my head, I had to do the exam.
With all of those things happening, the broken kneecap, and then also the inability for them to give you the part-time work that you really wanted, and these challenges, ultimately you end up leaving and setting up your own transformational energy practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So it took a while to actually close it all off from a red tape point of view. But yeah, and I just thought, well, I know this is what I know, and I love doing it. So let's do it. So I did. I literally, and if I had actually sat down and planned it, it might have been a different story. But it was like, okay, it landed in my lap. Let's do it, and it's been absolutely fantastic. I used to, when I was so angry at the time that it was all that was going on, I was so angry, and my body, it's the signs. There's signs, aren't there? There's always signs. Your body holds the score. And about 5 or 6 months ago, it's like all my nursing energetically came to the surface. I knew what it was because I've done energy medicine work for 10 years. But it was so interesting because what was going on in my head was every single nursing job I've had, it just sort of flashed before me, and all the emotion that I had obviously dealt with to deal with them came up. And there's been some really, not nice things that have come up. It's like PTSD, and people in the health system and the AMBOs and police, we all experience it because we're at the coalface. So yeah, it's really interesting.
One of the things you said to me earlier when I was talking about when we were chatting before was this idea that, the stakes were the highest at that point for you health-wise, because you were really, your health was starting to fail. And here you were having symptoms that the people that you were working with were having, and, but then the broken kneecap. And so there's this part of you where your actual health is failing, the thing that you care the most about, because you're in the health industry.
Yeah.
That must have been when the stakes were the highest for you, just having your own health failing, and to the point that you really couldn't continue doing that job. Do you want to go into that a little bit more?
Absolutely. For me, that was definitely for me, that was there's no question. No matter what anyone had thrown at me, that to me was well, that's the biggest indicator of all. When, I've always looked after my health. So why would I put myself in that position? And so it was kind of a no-brainer. And of course, fear attached to it. I have had a regular income. And even as I moved around, and there would be a month in between as you'd go traveling, or, that as soon as you started work again, there would be a pay packet at the end of the fortnight or the month, however we were paid. And this isn't the case anymore. It's a totally different thing. But also what I found, it also made me realize that, the main healthcare system, I mean, it's fantastic, the things they do for acute care, but it doesn't deal with chronic illness very well. And so my ideas and my beliefs with the energy medicine and how I structure my whole life, they're polar opposites. So the anger and everything that I was experiencing just going to work, it was like my soul was dying. So there were so many things that showed themselves as to it's time to go,
Yeah.
And it was complete burnout, no question about it. So I know what that all feels like. And so for me, it was I guess it was definitely another leap of faith. I've done lots of those on my journey.
Yeah.
And it was very much me trusting that inner voice, trusting my intuition on not just for working out, it was just for me doing what I needed to do for me and taking that leap.
And can you remember when you are on the precipice of taking that leap? And obviously, you feel like, because my health is so important, I have no choice, and this is the direction I'm going in. Yeah. There must have been some fears, some doubts as you cross that bridge. But can you recall what they might have been, what they were?
Well, the biggest fear, I guess, was the financial side of things. But also at the time, I didn't have my indefinite leave of stay here or anything in the UK. So, so that was actually a huge thing, because you have to prove that you can support yourself, don't you, to stay in the country. So, and that was like another 12 months on or something like that at the time. No, I got that in October this year. So 18 months later, I needed that. So that was a big one. So my background also, I'm over in the UK because of my children, and I haven't lived with them for 9 years it was. So 2 years ago, just before all this happened, I moved in with my daughter. So I finally got back living with her, and then all of a sudden my job's not there. So, I get one part of my life sorted out and the other falls away. So it very much was trust, because, and I do laugh. I genuinely laugh about it, because it's so ridiculous how things happen in swings and roundabouts. And I have asked for things not to be quite so dramatic. And I think it's starting to be quite not so dramatic.
I love that. Well, first of all, it's always interesting talking to someone like you who is a transformational energy practitioner. You understand how energy moves and how energy works. And you've really taught me a lot about energy. And I'm much more open to energy and how it moves and understanding it because of you and because I've spent some time with you and I've seen it. I mean, anyone watching this, you might be listening to it, but if you get a chance to watch this video, you can see the energy that Jodi has. It's just so beautiful. And, so even though you had, the stakes were really high, here you are living with your daughter, your health, you got a broken knee, your health, you're burnt out, your health is failing. There is a part of you that, even though you've got all these fears and doubts, there's a part of you that knows that if I just trust, it's all going to work out somehow. So what would you say is the biggest surprise that came out of this whole journey, this whole story that you've navigated?
Well, I think one of the biggest surprises was the fact that all the stuff that I had ever nursed physiologically, because, we hold emotions in our body at cellular level. And it's not just our emotions, it's the people around us. And when you're in that environment, you don't realize what you take on, but clearly you do. And that's surfaced for me. So it was fantastic from a learning point of view, because it's what I do anyway. So I understand it. So I can understand my clients better from that point of view. And so that would probably be the biggest. But I think also it gives you, does it surprise me? I don't know if it surprises me, but I suppose I'm quite proud of the fact that how resilient I am because of what has been thrown at me and how I've dealt with it. And I probably laugh inappropriately at things, but like, seriously, in the job that I had, people could die. In the rest of the world and the everyday things, it's just, so what? People don't die. It's just something that's irritating or annoying. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's putting things into perspective and having more of an overall view of life as, it's actually really good. And of course, there's still fears and still life goes on and still wobblies get thrown. But nothing has the same hold of angst on you as it ever has. And so it's a lot easier to be lighter about things. And it's like, okay, no problem, she'll be right. And that's so there's lots of things I've learned, but that's probably the overall. Yeah.
And would you say that you have a motto that you live by or that you've embraced?
I guess it's the trust. It's that tuning into your intuition and trusting. I'm not so good with affirmations. I keep changing the words. So if I trust for me, it's tuning into me and trusting that little inner voice. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I'd love for you to talk to people a little bit more about transformational energy and, how you work with people, because it's really, really unique. And I think I find so fascinating about your story is how it's all sort of led up to this moment where you're really truly doing what you love, and you can see it on you, you can feel it when you're around you. So what is it that you do, if you could explain that to people? Because I don't think a lot of people really understand how powerful energy medicine is and what it is and how it can impact them, and maybe give us some tips for people to walk away with, that they can try something today that might help them.
Yeah, sure. Like, seriously, what is energy medicine? Like, everything is energy. So it's tapping into that energy within us. So, and it comes in so many forms. So if even if you just rub your hands together, and then pull them apart, just closely, but pull them apart, and see if you can feel anything in the palms of your hands. So it may be some heat or some coolness or tingling or pulsation. And if you can feel anything, that's the energy that we're talking about, that we're playing with. And we've got 9 energy systems in our body, and you don't have to know what they all are, but it's balancing them. So if our energies are balanced, then we're not going to experience symptoms. So it happens before anything else. And you can use it for anything. So the best way to explain it, when you, like Joy mentioned earlier, so for example, if you walk into a room and you know that a couple of people have been fighting, you can feel it in the air, can't you? Yeah. It's that we're tuning into. So it can be really, really subtle. And where our lives are designed to live outside with all the noise that's going on and the social media and all of those things that are happening to other people that we all flick through. But if we can come back into ourselves and then tune into what our inner voice is saying and start to understand ourselves on an energetic level, then your whole life just changes. It can't help but change, because what happens is you start to increase your frequency energetically. So therefore, as you increase your frequency, you're going to attract high frequency things, which is what, further, once you become aware of what's going on. So the programs that I do in the working with people is all about the awareness of energy and what is actually going on inside you. So what is it so a lot of it's mindset. What is it that you're thinking? What stresses you? What are your beliefs around the topic? And we can tap into that energetically, because then we're tapping into the subconscious, and the subconscious is the part where all your habits are created. So that's where to tap into. And if we can change that energetically, then it's easier for those new habits to form, because we're rewiring those neural pathways. We've got to fill it with something that is going to serve us. So there's all of that. And, what emotions and what stories are we telling ourselves? So, and that's the mindset side of things. But there's energy exercises that we can do to help strengthen those stories that we want, and what do we not remove? Yeah, remove those stories that we don't want. So energy exercises help that. And we can test for your energies. For me, it was really important to have a tool that I could use therapeutically, so you can see where the energy is strong, where the energy is weak. And that leads me to know what I can give you to change those energy habits. So we're working out on a physical level as well as a mindset level. So it's so holistic. And so some of the clients that I have, I've had a few, this has been amazing actually. Some of the clients I've had recently have been women trying to get pregnant. And one of my amazing success stories that I love to tell people is this lady rang me. She's 44 years of age, and she rang me a week before she was going to go for IVF again. Now, this lady had 9 miscarriages.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay. And she heard a bit about energy medicine. She just said, I've been told that this would be really good. And she was having it a week later. So I said, okay, let's do this. So we did it. We had 2. I wanted to make sure I did at least 2 sessions to start with. And one of them was her beliefs around pregnancy that we worked with. And I also wanted to check her basic energy system to see what exercises I could give her to give her the basic foundation. So we did that, and then the following week she had her IVF implantation thing. And she also religiously does all the exercises that I have given her. And she gets her husband involved in them as well, which I just think is magic. And she's now 32 weeks pregnant with a little girl, and her life is just like, they've got the nursery ready and everything, and I can't wait for the birth in February. And that's just through energy medicine. And so her whole life has already changed, and they haven't even had the birth of the child, and her connection with her child as well. So, you can talk to your child at a soul level when they're conceived, prior to the conception. There's all those things at not just a physical level that we can work with as well. And then there's also people that suffer anxiety attacks. There's also clients that have had endometriosis and menopausal symptoms. So there's a chronic pain. It works with everybody and for everything. And I've created a 12-week program to encompass the whole, to take you through an online component. The online component is the generic information, but then we also get on and have one-on-one sessions. So whatever is triggered from the online questions that are asked, then we get to work with it at an energetic level. And so it's very, very individual. It's targeted to exactly what you need over that period of time.
Well, and one of the reasons that I wanted to work with you was understanding how ADHD affects the energy as well. And that's something that you've learned a lot about. And so do you want to share with people about how ADHD affects your energy?
Yeah, sure. So with ADHD, so it's, again, in the Western world, most of us are stressed more often than we should be. Most of us are stressed 24/7. So what does that mean? So we've still got the same reflex action as we were given in caveman days. So we haven't evolved physiologically from that. And so, you'd either stay there and fight and flight and freeze. You'd either fight the saber-toothed tiger or run like hell so that you wouldn't get eaten. But either way, it would happen quickly, and it was short-lived. So then our bodies would get out of fight and flight and go back into rest and digest. But what happens these days? We're in fight and flight most of the time. And when we're in that mode, our body can't go into rest and digest. So all our immune system it can't function properly. Our digestive system's not functioning properly. All our basics, our endocrine system. So this is where chronic illness comes from, because our normal systems aren't working properly. And with ADHD, it's like you're on all the time. So the fight and flight freeze is on all the time. So and most people that will come to me, it's from an energetic point of view, we've got the meridian system. That's like the arteries and veins of the energy medicine world. And part of that system, there's a part of it is called the triple warmer. Now, the triple warmer is the fight and flight. And the partner, it has a relationship with part of this is the spleen meridian. And so most of us, the triple warmer is overactive and the spleen meridian is underactive, because when triple warmer needs more energy, because it's on the go all the time, it draws energy from the spleen first. And the spleen is to do with digestion of not just food, but emotions. If there's any change going on, and it's really nurturing. So certainly from not just going back to the fertility issue, spleen is usually under-energized because it's all to do with nurturing. So it's balancing out these two, triple warmer and spleen, balancing out that for ADHD. And so we would work on doing that. And there's some simple exercises you get to do. If you bring them into a daily routine, then it balances all that out. And that's a basic framework. And then also one of the other things with ADHD is most of the time, people will not have their energies crossing over. And having your energies crossing over, it balances your right and left brain. And people with chronic illness, their energies won't be crossing over. And if you're exhausted, you've had a really busy day and you're exhausted at the end of the day, they may not cross over. So it's a really important one. And simple things like one of the ways that you can do it is simply by taking one hand on your opposite shoulder, and then crossing over to your body to the opposite hip, and just doing that. Now, for some people, this may not hold long enough, but there's other exercises that we can do to make it hold for longer. Yeah, so they're two really simple things that we can do with someone with ADHD, and they can be really, they can be game changers.
Yeah, well, I've definitely enjoyed doing the exercises. I've been doing them for quite a while now. I'd say at least maybe 2 months or 6
Yeah,
weeks or
probably
so.
is about 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
great.
I haven't got my husband doing them yet. At least I'm not embarrassed doing them in front of him anymore. At least I'm willing to sort of just do them because I know that they help me. I've definitely benefited from them and being able to sort of protect my energy as well. I do a lot of coaching, as you know, and so it's important for me. Even though I'm not triaging as a nurse might with a physical ailment with someone, I deal with a lot of individual challenges that people have and are facing. And I actually am pretty good about not keeping those, on me. But actually, I think what I've learned is, like you said, if you don't do this cleansing work, they will come. You will be surprised when they show up and they resurface themselves, because everything is energy, and so we don't want to. We really want to be careful about how we cleanse that energy, how we clean that energy, and create an environment where we can function at our highest level. And it's hard to do if you're not doing those extra bits of work.
100%, Joy. I couldn't agree more. And just thinking about like the grounding, just grounding is something that's so simple, but we get so caught up in our own life that sometimes we don't forget it because we've got that list of calls to get on or other people to deal with. And grounding is, again, it's one of those real basics of the energy medicine world. Like, get grounded, and then it's also much easier to deal with you, but also much easier to deal with others, like you were talking about.
Well, I was saying, at one point I was saying to you, whenever I take my dog for a walk, the very first thing she does when she sees grass is roll all around in it. And I thought, there's a part of me that wants to just do that too, go lay in the grass and roll around. So grounding, I mean, obviously it's, not so convenient to take your shoes off and, and just roll around in the grass, even though that would be really, really good for all of us. So things we can ground ourselves. I mean, that's why people love walking on the beach without their shoes, right? Because that
100%. 100%.
I did go for a dog walk a couple months ago, right after we started doing the work. And I thought, I'm just going to take off my shoes and do the walk barefoot. And then one time I was watching my son play football, and I just thought, I'm just take my shoes off and stand here while he's playing. And it was not cold. It was not warm out. It was cold, but I felt so much better just having had my feet straight on the ground. Are there other things that we can do to ground ourselves that don't require taking off the shoes and walking?
Yeah, absolutely. There's it's kind of sounds weird, but it's really helpful in the UK because of the climate. A stainless steel spoon, as ridiculous as it sounds. So, and you can tell if it's stainless steel because you just like literally put a magnet to it. If it's magnet sticks, it's stainless steel. And then you can rub it on the base of your feet. I actually haven't got one in the room at the minute, but you literally.
And you don't have to take your socks off.
You would rub it. No, you can keep your socks on. You would just rub it around there across your foot, up and down your foot. It doesn't matter how. So with grounding, what actually happens is the earth holds negative ions. We hold positive ions because of the technology and the lives we lead and everything. And for things, when we're in our flow, you've got the energy from the ground coming up through our body and then back down again. So you're getting the positive ions heading down to the negative ions. And as you mentioned, like we wear rubber-soled shoes, so that stops the flow. We also don't get outside, so that stops the flow. And we also have lots of technology and the way we live that stops the flow. So we intentionally grounding is a really good thing to do. And so the spoon can actually do the same thing because of the metal in the spoon. It actually helps ground and bring the energy down from your body, so it actually meets at your feet, and we can then draw the energy back up from the earth, which is very, very important from an energy balance point of view. Yeah,
that's amazing. And I just love the work that you do. If someone's interested in working with you and finding out more about energy medicine, and they want to discover what you can do for them and how you can help them, where would they go?
So my website is jodiannlaw.com, and all my social media. So I've got Facebook, Instagram, and I've got a YouTube channel, and they're all jodiannlaw.com. So that's Jodi with an I and Anne with an E.
There we go. Yeah.
And I've got some free things on my website. So you can free consultation. You can give me a call and we can find out. I've got free affirmations, 9 minutes of affirmations, positive affirmations, and a series on anxiety, three easy ways to deal with anxiety. So have a look. I'd love to.
Oh, thank you so much. And we'll put all that into the show notes. So I really appreciate you coming on. It's been really fun getting to know you through the TechPixies program, and also this amazing work that you're doing on the energy side. So I wanted to bring that to our audience. And also, for anyone who's listening that might be a burnt out nurse who's done, they've done their time and actually they really want to do something different, here's an option. and
there are other things out there. Definitely.
There are amazing options out there. So thank you, Jodi. I really appreciate you being here.
No, thanks, Joy. I've really enjoyed it. Lovely to be on.
Well, I appreciate you listening or watching, however you've consumed this podcast. Thank you so much. And I hope you got as much inspiration out of that as I did. Have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you on our next podcast. Bye for now.